Hey there everyone, this is Mystic Fish and welcome to episode 13 of our Factorio Steampunk Challenge. Last episode we got a lab setup going, but as I was thinking about this, I think there's actually a problem with this setup, which is these buffers right here. There is not necessarily any guarantee that we only get coal in here. And so I think this is not how we need this to be set up here. I think I want to redesign this because I really don't want to have the hassle of having like science stuck in here and then not having coal for the furnaces or for the boiler, and so I think what we want to do I want to redesign this. So let's see. Let's move you. I guess we can move you here. Let's get the train out of the way. And we will flip it to manual. Okay. I think simpler is better here. Let's see. So I think one possibility is we could just do something like this and this, and do our little coal trick here, like so. And use that on the boilers. So, that doesn't get, it's not going to get a ton. It's not going to get a ton of labs in here, but I think it'll be easier to understand how this thing works. So we can do something like this. And that is just, it's just going to be that much more straightforward. So we can just put that to coal. This will take care of everything we need as far as loading things in here, and so I think this is what I want to do instead. So let's just go pick this stuff up. Okay, let's make a quick blueprinty guy of this. Sure, nope. I need to grab the trains. And so we can do that and that and that and that. Yeah. Then we can get rid of these over here. So, okay, look, this means we're not going to have the like totally satisfying sort of like ultra fast research we were looking for there, but nope, that's not it. This one, flip it this way. Nope, this way. No, that's not right. That's not right. Get rid of you. This one has the, okay, flip this way. Okay. All right. Okay. This is going to work fine. This works a lot more like the other things that we've already set up. It does have 20 labs in it, so if we're really worried about lab throughput, we can just stamp down a few more of these. So I think I'd rather do it this way and not run into later problems. I think simplicity is our friend here wherever we can manage it. So let's just get the water plunked together again. Route the water this way. Okay, then we need pipes for there and there and there. All right, now we got water coming through. So I think that's more like what we like. Okay, so let's send you back to, let's get rid of that and let's send you back to the labs. We'll see how this looks. Fun fact, which I noticed before, is if a lab is not actively performing research, it does not consume electricity. So that's good to know. So let's just wait until we see, okay, that gets coal everywhere it needs to be. Okay, great. All right, so the next step is still going to be, let's see, let's make a new subfactory. We're going to call this Green Science. Okay. You are going to make, let's see, you're going to make Green Science. Let's start with 90 science per second. Okay. Let's see. Left click to add a recipe. All right, this we need to change to these. So that makes for 12. If we want 20 assembly machines too, that is going to be, okay, so 20 scaled to 12. So that is going to be calculator. So 20 divided by 12 equals 1.67. And then times 90, we want that to be 150 science per minute. Okay, so let's get this back up here. Let's edit you to 150. Submit, that makes 20. Okay, great. So now let's add the recipes for these. Then we need the recipes for these. Oh, left click to add recipe. Left click to add recipe. Left click to add recipe. Recipe, recipe. Recipe. This one. And recipe, this one. Okay, and recipe for that one. Okay, so this is everything that we are going to need for the Green Science. And so we can see that, yeah, one processing station for inserters, one for transport belts, one for electronic circuits, one for gears. It looks like we're going to need a little more than 2 additional. Looks like we're maybe going to need 3 smelting arrays for iron, 1 manufacturing array for copper cable, 1 smelting array for copper, 55 burner miners, for iron, 15 for copper, and we're going to need almost 16 for coal, but we're actually going to it's going to be a little different, right, because of the way that we have the coal mining set up. If you remember, there's a certain rate we need, which is 233 items per minute. And so really the way to think about it is, if you remember, we have 3 pairs of coal miners put together. Here, let's go down and look at it. All right, where's our coal mining? Just want to illustrate what we're going to be talking about here. Okay. Coal miners are down over here. Okay, so if you notice, this is, we have six coal miners here, but really these 6 here are limited by this. They're really there to, it's really these 3 miners that are providing the coal that's ultimately being fed out by this burner inserter right here. And these exist solely just to keep those running. And so I think what that means is there's sort of like a, we're going to need, well, we'll have to do this, we'll have to calculate this out. In fact, let's do it now. So I need to get 233 items per minute. Let's look at a burner inserter. Burner inserter spins, if I remember correctly, this is 216 degrees per second. So calculator, 216 divided by 360. So that is 0.6 swings per second. So that is 0.6 coal per second, give or take. And so if we want 233 coals per minute, okay, let's go back to the calculator. Okay, 200 and let's call it 34, we'll round it up. Okay, divide that by 60 to get coal per second. That's 3.9. And then divide by 0.6 is 6.5. So we need, we're going to need 6.5 sets of 6. So that's 7 sets of 6. Okay, so I think what we're going to do at this point is we've pretty much seen just about everything here. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go set all of this stuff up off camera. And I'm actually wondering if it makes sense to specifically set this up as, like, make the train station names different so that this set of resources is isolated from the set of resources we have stood up for the red science already, so that it's we don't have like sort of intertwingling problems. It might be easier for us to debug here. So I think I'm going to go off camera and go set this up. And we'll come back once a bunch of this stuff has been set up, and we'll take a tour through what got set up at that point. So stay tuned, and we'll talk to you momentarily. Okay, we are back after quite a bit of time, but let me give you an overview of what's been going on. A lot of the station designs and layouts have not really changed very much, but as you can see, we have built out stations, and I put tags on the map here. I decided to make this set of stuff dedicated just to green science. So it has complete own set of resources, like we're mining the coal here, we're mining the iron here, here's the copper. And they're labeled. I put this sort of green science : prefix on all of these. including manufacturing of stuff. So one of the things that, this took me a little bit to get set up and working properly. And I realized that I had been playing kind of fast and loose with some of the math here. So I want to walk you through a little bit of how we got this stuff working. And so we're going to make use of the calculator here. One of the things that we want to look at is, here's our green science. So this is what I used as the reference. I used the factory planner to shoot for, okay, if I want to make 75 science per minute, and that gives us the rate of production that we need for all of these various things. So let me walk you through the math that I sort of did with this. The first thing that we want to look at is the rate of production. When we have a manufacturing location like this one, there's basically three possibilities for what the slowest piece of this is. One of them could be we could be input limited, meaning that, for example, there's one input inserter, and so if there's enough ingredients that need to come through here, such that it takes longer to load the ingredients than it does to actually make the thing, then we're going to be input limited. Conversely, there are some recipes like copper coils, for example, where sort of one set of ingredients makes multiple outputs. It's also true for yellow belts, for example. And so in some cases we may be output limited, meaning this inserter here that takes the finished products and puts them back on the train may be the slowest factor. And in other cases, it may be the actual manufacturing process itself. So in the case of green science, we can take a look at, actually, let's look at this recipe here. So green science takes 6 seconds to make. However, as we can see here in Assembly Machine 1 over here on the right, we can see crafting speed 0.5. So that means it takes actually 12 seconds to make one green science recipe. If we then look at the ingredients, we see we have one transport belt and one inserter coming in. Now, an inserter makes a burner inserter makes 0.6 swings per second. So if we want to put two inputs in, we would divide that by 0.6, and we can see that it takes 3 seconds, 3 1/3 seconds, to actually put all the ingredients in, which is going to be less than the 12 seconds it's actually going to be manufacturing stuff. So that means that we're going to be sort of production limited here. And so another way of saying that is, let's see, if we make we're going to make 12 science per second, 12 seconds. So it takes 12 seconds to make one green science. So that's the first thing. Now the next thing to do, and if we want to take a look at this, remember that what we're doing is we're running through to collect all the ingredients. Maybe these will be back by the time we're back. But one question is, okay, if you recall, like one of the things that we're doing here, right, is we're bringing the coal that we need for the production here. And so the question is, how much coal do we need to bring for each green science that we produce? Okay, so the next calculation that we want to do is how much coal do we need to power these assemblers here? Okay, and so if we look here, we can see the max consumption here is 77.5 kilowatts. Okay, so we can say 77.5 kilowatts. It's going to take 12 seconds. Kilowatts are kilojoules per second. It's going to take 12 seconds to make one green science. Then we have to divide by 1,000 to get megajoules. That converts kilojoules to megajoules. And then one piece of coal has 4 megajoules worth of power to it. So that all boils down to 0.23. So in other words, we need almost a quarter of a piece of coal to run to generate the electricity to power the assembly machines here. So that's the first thing. The second thing that we need coal for is actually all of the burner inserter stuff. So now the next question is, how many, the way I like to think of it is, for each science that we produce, how many swings of the burner inserter do we need? So if you remember the way that we have these depots set up here, right, like this, the depots contain the coal that they need to unload. So when we look at this train schedule, when I'm stopping in here to pick up my ingredients, the coal, the belts, and the inserters, I'm not using any coal for that, right? Because the coal is already sitting in the depots that have these ingredients in them, and that's where they are sort of paid for in some ways. So in this case, we've got 2 ingredients going in, right? We need to put 1 belt and 1 inserter, so that's 2 swings. Then we need 1 swing to put it back in here, so that's 3 total. And then when it comes around to the depot, we need another one to put it into the depot, and then one more swing to get it out, again to unload it. Because remember, the depot is paying for the unloading. So that's a total of 5 total swings, right? So we've got the 2 inputs, 1 output, once into the depot, once out of the depot. So that is, so let's clear this. So that is 5 swings. And remember, we get around 50 swings for each piece of coal. So that means that we need 0.1 pieces of coal per science produced in order just for all of the burner inserter swings. We're going to ignore some of this as long as we sort of can round up on some of this stuff. We're not going to worry about it too much. And so that means the total coal that we need is 0.33 coal per science, right? So in other words, 1 piece of coal for every 3 pieces of science that we make. Okay, so that's important to know. Okay, let's move this over here. So the next thing that we want to look at is, here, I'm going to make a copy of this thing just so we can look at it here. Okay, so now let's talk about ratios here. So if we look at the recipe, right, it's everything's in a 1-to-1 ratio ingredient rise, right? 1 belt plus 1 inserter makes 1 green science. However, the stack sizes are not all the same, right? So for each stack of science, so there's this would be 200 science. So we need 200 belts. Belts are in stacks of hundreds, so that's 2 stacks. And then we need 200 inserters. And so inserters are in stacks of 50, so we need 4 stacks for that. Okay, so now the question is, okay, just for this sort of set of slots here, how many stacks of coal do we need to produce this science right here? So let's clear this out. So we've got 200 science in here. We know we need 0.33 coal per science, so times 0.33. So that's total coal, and then if we divide by 50, that will be stacks of coal. So it's about 1 1/3. So that's 1 plus some extra here, about 1/3 of a stack. So we can go ahead and it's sort of like we could do it with, probably just these 4 and these 2. That would cover 1 1/3 times 4. Right, so that would be 4 and 4/3, right? So that would fit here. I thought about trying to like squeeze in. We could get partial stacks in here to do like sort of another partial stack. That would make the whole thing more efficient, but it makes the math for sort of working this stuff out a little harder. So that's how we set the contents of the wagon here, right? Making sure that we do have enough coal. The other reason to reserve a little extra coal is that if we take a look, let me see if I can find one where this is the case. Yeah, so here's one. Okay, so the belt train is not currently here, but what you can see is the steam engines are still running, right? And that's because if you take a look at the inserter here, where it has a min consumption, right, this 2.5 kilowatts. So even while a train is not here, it's consuming electricity, which means that it's burning down the coal that's in here. And so I think this may be a belt train coming up. But what we can see is that we're actually going to replenish this buffer when it arrives. And so it's possible for these sort of coal buffers to be completely empty when the train arrives. And so we do probably need at least one stack when we reserve just for sort of priming the production area here where we go. Okay, so that is that. So that's how we are figuring out the what the trains are going to look like. Then that dictates the. Oh, here we can get rid of this guy now. That dictates the schedule here, right? So for here, like we're just adding, basically taking all of those slots that we had reserved in the wagon, and we are just putting those limits here to go pick them up when they're filled. A couple things, and I'm not sure if we've done this. It's been so long that I've been working on this part of it and getting it right that I can't remember. But so after picking up the coal that we're looking for, right, which is filling up these slots of coal here, then we're also waiting for 10 seconds of inactivity, and that's because if you remember at the coal depot, there's a fuel stop that's filling up the fuel in the locomotive. So we do need to make sure that finishes before we get there. And then similarly on the other side, we want to wait at the drop off at the depot. Yes, we want to unload all the science, but we may need to fill in some remaining coal that's waiting to be filled up in sort of these slots, right? We may have to fill in some of this coal here. And so that means we wait around to make sure that nothing else is going on before we leave. And that makes sure that we keep the coal in there topped up. Okay, so now the next thing that we need to look at is how busy do we need these things to be? So if we come back and look at this, and actually in this case the math is pretty easy, right? This says that we need 15 assembling machines to hit 75 science per minute. We actually have 20 here. And so another way of saying that is that these assembly machines actually only need to run 75% of the time, right? That's 15. Whoops. Let's clear this. So 15, that's all that we need, but we have 20. So that's saying if all 20 actually only ran at 75% of the time, then we could keep up, right, with the 75 science per minute. And so we might say that another way of saying that, right, is that we need these assembly machines to be 75% utilized. Or another way of saying that, yet another way of thinking about it, is that the train needs to be parked here, or a train needs to be parked here 75% of the time. So the question is, okay, well, how many trains do we need? So we can figure that out by looking at, like, what is the long round trip time of this train? Okay, so the first thing that it's going to do is pick up its ingredients, right? So we know, actually it's easier to see on the schedule, right? First thing we're going to do is we need to pick up 6,000 coal, right, from the coal depot. So how long will that take? Okay, so one thing to look at is going across here, we have 60 burner inserters, right? So how fast can 60 burner inserters unload stuff? Okay, well, 60 burner inserters, they swing 0.6 swings per second. So that's how many swings per second they get, but about 1 out of every 50 swings is going to be taken up not by swinging items around, but actually by refilling the burner inserter. So we can also say times 49 divided by 50, right? Because we only get 49/50ths or something like that. And so that boils down to, we could say, hey, we can rely on 35 items per second sort of coming out of a depot. And it's also 35 items per second going into a depot as well. So, so if we want to load, what do we have? 6,000 coal. Then that will take 6,000 coal divided by 35 items per second. Means it's going to sit there at the coal station for 172 seconds. Just a moment. All right, sorry about that. Okay. And then all the other stops are 8,000. Either we're picking up 8,000 ingredients or we're dropping off 8,000 ingredients. Okay, so 8,000 ingredients divided by 35 is going to be, call it 229 seconds. And then the question is, what's the processing time here? Okay, so so in this case, we want to make, here at this station, we want to make 8,000 science. So that's going to be 8,000 science. Each one takes 12 seconds, but we have 20 assemblers. And so that's going to be 4,800 seconds. And then there's transit time. Okay, so this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stops. If we assume it takes, the train actually spends a minute going between each stop, then that's 5 extra minutes for transit time. Okay, so let's see now. So to add this all up, we've got the production time of 4,800. We've got 3 stops at 229 seconds. We've got 1 stop at 172 seconds, plus 5 minutes, so 5 times 60. Okay, so that is a total transit time round trip of 59 seconds. So yeah, and you know, by the way, this is an hour and 20 minutes sitting here at the station making green science. So now the question is, okay, that's the total time. This is how much time it spends at the station. So I just deleted it all, but I think I can remember it. Okay. So, so we can see actually on the schedule, one train will actually be at the station 81% of the time. And so remember, we only needed 75%. So that means one train is actually enough. You know, even when it's not here, it's enough to go pick up all its ingredients, come back around, and keep these assemblers 75% utilized. So that means we need one train doing that. Okay, so so basically, I went and did that same math for sort of all of these other things. You know, some of the complications here are like here the belts. Belts are very fast to produce, right? It's basically 1 second. Right, for the it's 0.5 seconds crafting time, but we're assembler 1, so that ends up being 1 second because of the half crafting speed. I've got 2 ingredients in and 2 ingredients out, right? Because this makes 2 belts. And so if we look at the calculator, so 2 swings divided by 0.6 is going to be a little over 3 seconds, right? So this is actually, it's actually a tie for input and output constraint on these. And so you can think of this as 3 seconds per belt. But otherwise, all of the same math sort of stuff that we did here is going to be the same. What else is worth highlighting? Here is one. So here's one. Let's go look at the green science, or green circuits rather. So here's a recipe, right, where it's got 4 ingredients coming in and 1 going out, right? So that's actually 4 input swings. And the crafting time, again, is going to be half a second crafting time at half speed is going to be 1 second. So 4, I should just really just leave this calculator up for this. So 4 swings divided by 0.6 is going to be 6.67 seconds, right? So actually most of the time, this is going to be just sitting here waiting for ingredients to come in. So that will be that. We have also ones, I can show you one that's output constrained. So that can be up here. That's going to be copper wire is output constrained, right? So so here we've got one ingredient in, two ingredients out. Let's see if we divide this by 2, right? 3 seconds just to get the 2 copper coils out. But the crafting time, again, sort of 1 second total. So this one's output constrained. And so that's going to impact that. Most things, it turned out, did not need multiple trains. Exceptions were for mining, it ended up being, and the iron smelting here. And so, here the calculation is a little different, because instead of looking at the assembly machine's power, we do the same calculation for the stone furnace. Whoops, I need to move this so we can see. So we can see a stone furnace has a max consumption of 90 kilowatts. So we just use that instead of the 77.5 kilowatts. And otherwise, it ended up we needed 2 trains here to produce the necessary iron plates that we needed. Let's see. The other little interesting wrinkle came with respect to some of the mining, and that's because it works off of these 2 stations. And one of the things that you can see is, if a station is empty for long enough, whatever coal is buffered in here will actually get fed into the miners to fill these sort of buffer boxes. But that means that the first trains that come in may have to refill the buffer here. So they may need extra coal here. Or they may use more coal than the back half of the train, is another way of saying it. Meaning, these first trains here, these first cargo wagons here, are going to have to fill these up if they're empty, whereas they'll all be filled up when the back half sort of gets around to them. And so one of the wrinkles of that means that for a mining train, actually the front half of the car ends up having potentially higher coal use than the back half. And so that meant that down at the coal depot, when it comes time to refill things down here, it meant that we're basically drawing down here on the front half of these cars faster than the back half. And so the prior schedule for the train that would come here and drop it off said, well, wait till you're empty. But the problem is that it's going to run out of coal for the front half sooner than the back half. And so what we really want to do is we want to actually make sure that we're keeping these sort of equally set up. And so we changed the schedule slightly on these so that we added this, which says, hey, if you run out of coal, fine, you should be done, go get more coal. But also, if you haven't moved anything in 60 seconds, then you may be in a situation where you sort of have an unbalanced load at this point. And so you should just clear out of here, because by the time you go through these, you'll fill back up and you'll even out the train. But what that meant is when we added this, it meant that sometimes the train is pulling out here with some coal. And in particular, it sometimes has coal in the back half, which meant that just saying it's not going to be empty when it shows up to the first mining post, which meant that what I found accidentally was that this first schedule here of like, hey, this was supposed to be enough to fill up the front half of the train. But what ended up happening was it didn't quite fill it all up because there was some leftover remnants in the back half of the train that got it over the 10K. So I had to add this inactivity thing here as well to make sure that the front half of the train really was full. And so that is where we're at as far as producing all of the stuff that we need for green science. So, and as you can imagine, by the fact that we just saw that it is an hour and 20 minutes, that the green science train sits here making science before it comes back around. This takes quite a while to load up. But we've got, let's see, 268, 268, 266. So I think that's about, we've got about 8,000 green science. We've gone through once. We're working on the next batch here. We're about a quarter of the way through the next batch. So I think now what we'll do next episode is we'll be able to go revisit our science setup and see about like actually doing some research with green science. But that will be an interesting problem for future Mr. Fish. So as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Until then, bye.